I want to talk to you today about suspension, because if you have a new Levo or any turbo mountain bike in general, this can apply to any of the bikes, but especially these Levos. If you get one of these bikes, you're probably a little curious as to how to set up the suspension the right way. I know I've been thinking about that. I have a lot of friends who don't ride mountain bikes, and now they have these turbo e-bikes and they don't know about suspension. So I can't help but think about that, and I want to sort of give you some general guidelines on how to best set up specifically your Fox suspension on a turbo mountain bike from Specialized. So what I have right here is this is an Expert Turbo Levo. I've changed the suspension a little bit. The fork is a new Fox 38, and on the rear shock I have the Fox Float X2. So that's a little bit different than the way this bike comes out of the box, but it all applies the same way. This bike out of the box comes with this Performance Fox 36. This is on the Expert model, and then on the rear shock it's got this Performance Float. So what I'm going to explain to you here still applies to that. It's just a little bit different. If you get the S-Works model on this bike, that suspension is more similar to what I have on this bike right here. So the things we're going to cover in this are compression, rebound, and air pressure, which is going to be setting up your sag. So before we go into how to adjust that, I want to give a little bit of an explanation to each adjustment and what that adjustment's intended purpose is, what it's for, and what that is going to do for you if you change it. So for this, it's for front and rear, what these adjustments do. So let's start with air pressure. Your air pressure is completely separate. On a fork, it's on here on the left side. It is completely separate from your dampening, which is on the right side. Air pressure is essentially the spring force. It's what's keeping your bike afloat, and it's the force in your suspension. Has no dampening in it. So to set the air pressure, it's pretty simple. We'll cover it later, but you put the correct pressure to set the right sag. Now, dampening, on here on the right, has on a factory Fox, you have your high-speed compression, your low-speed compression, your high-speed rebound, and your low-speed rebound. Let me explain a little bit what high-speed compression is as opposed to low-speed compression. So high-speed compression is going to be when you're riding down the trail and you're going over fast rocks, and it's like, you're going over a bunch of fast rocks, or you land a jump and there's a really fast high-speed impact. That's what your high-speed compression is adjusting. It's those really fast high-speed impacts. A low-speed impact is something where, let's say you're riding down the trail and you're pedaling and you're trying to get rid of that pedaling bob. That's low speed. Or if you were to go off a jump and you're going off the lip of the jump and your suspension's just collapsing as you're going off, that's a low-speed compression. So that's a general outlook. High speed, fast impacts; low speed, slower, more subtle impacts. And the same goes for the rebound. So for the rebound, the low-speed rebound, it's the return of that slow speed. If you're going off of a jump, adjust the low speed as it's loading into it, and then as the fork comes back or it extends, that is the low speed rebound. Same thing with the high speed rebound. So you really got two circuits here: high speed in, high speed out, low speed in, low speed out. So the challenge with this is adjusting each one sort of in sync with each other to find a perfect balance. Fork and shock, same thing. So I figured the best thing for me to do is I'll sort of give you a baseline to start with, and I'm going to give you the settings that I run for the front and the back, and that will be a good starting point for you. But once you fully understand how to adjust these things, go out on the trail and do it yourself and make little adjustments. I'm going to walk you through adjusting it from the beginning, so that's something we'll talk about. So for the shock here, really quickly I'll run through it. We got your high-speed compression is 6 clicks, and that's 6 clicks out from the fully closed position. And then your low-speed compression is 9 clicks, low-speed rebound 4, high-speed rebound is 3. Okay, that's my setting for the rear shock. Let's go up to the front fork here. So the same thing. We have for the high-speed compression, we're at 4, low-speed compression 6, high-speed rebound 3, low-speed rebound 6. So those are my settings. I have spent, since I've been using the 38 here, it's a brand new dampening circuit from the previous year. And ever since I put this fork on this bike, it's actually taken me quite some time to get the thing dialed in. I'm not sure why. Usually I can figure it out in a ride or two. This one kind of took me some time to get it perfect. So I recommend trying those settings. Put those on your bike and see what that feels like. Those are my settings. Let's walk through how you would do this if you get this bike out of the box. So you pull this thing out of the box, or if you get it built from a dealer, you're coming home with it and you're like, great, now I have this nice suspension on my bike. I have no idea what I'm doing. How am I going to do this? Let's take it from the top. The first thing we're going to do is adjust the air pressure. Now the air pressure is going to set your sag on the bike. So if you're to sit on the bike here and put your weight on the bike, it's going to sag down a little bit. That's your sag. And so what we're going to be measuring here with this little O-ring, you can push it down, is when you compress it, how far does it push that little O-ring? That's your sag. Generally what you want for the back is about a 20% sag. So you take some air out, it's going to push that O-ring farther. Put more in, there's going to be less sag, it's going to push it not as far. So for the back you want about 20%. Same thing goes for the front. Slide the O-ring down right here, put all your weight on the bike, get off, extend the fork, and that is what you're looking at, your sag right there. I usually do a little bit less sag on the front than I do the back. They say 20% front and rear is generally about a good place to start. There's nothing wrong with that. I do a little bit less on the front just because I like the front of my bike to ride a little bit higher. So let's go ahead and adjust the pressure on the rear. You're going to take off this little air cap right here. You're going to get your pump. This is a specific high pressure pump. And you're going to connect that to your shock right there. And then when you connect it, you're going to get a reading on your shock. Maybe make note of that. And then you can increase or decrease your pressure here depending on what your sag is, so you can get the correct amount right here. Once you get the correct amount, take it off. Now we have our sag set. So to adjust your compression and rebound adjustments, the best place to start is pick a middle ground. If there are, say there's 8 clicks of adjustment, start somewhere in the middle. Go 4, 5, 6, start somewhere there, ride the bike, see how it feels, and then take note of that on your high hits. Think about, okay, I'm going through a fast section. Does it feel hard or does it feel soft? Or how do I want to change that? And then adjust it accordingly. Try 2 clicks at a time. That's a good place to start. 2 clicks in, 2 clicks out, and just change the feel of that. Then move on to your low speed. Same thing, start in the middle. If you feel like your back is like kind of falling down a little bit and you want it to stay higher, dial in your low speed and give it a little bit more. That will give you some more support and bring up your back end. Same with the front. Feel like your front's kind of diving down, give it some low speed. Just a couple clicks at a time. A couple clicks makes a huge difference. So do that, bring it up, or the opposite. If it's too high or too stiff, loosen it, it'll come down. So just make minor adjustments at the time, keeping in mind what that knob's intended purpose is. High speed, harsh hit, or a low speed, softer, slower hit. And same thing with the rebound. Feel like it's not coming back fast enough, figure out, is it not coming back fast enough on the high speed or the low speed? It's challenging, but when you're riding and you actually think about it, you really can pick up on this stuff and you will be able to adjust it, and it's fun. You know, you can figure it out. Okay, so those are generally the settings for the Fox factory fork and rear shock. If you have an expert Levo, it's going to come with this fork on it. The fork is very similar. It still has an air valve right here. That's going to be the same. You're going to set up the sag the same way. And then it also here, instead of having high speed and low speed compression like the factory one, it's got one knob. It's essentially a low speed compression, but there's 3 positions. This knob works great. That's pretty easy to use. There's just a open, medium, and firm. And then the only other adjustment this one has is one rebound. So that basically brings the high and low speed rebound circuits together. Okay. Then the shock right here. This shock comes in a Performance Elite right here, and then it also comes in a factory model. So if you get this Expert model or this bike in S-Works, you're going to have this same shock. The S-Works one will have a Kashima coating here, and the Expert will have this black coating. So with this one, the settings are similar to this, again, a little bit less than the Float X2 here, but you have 3-position, essentially a low-speed compression, and then you have a rebound adjustment on this. Same thing, air valve to set your sag up. Now, one thing I want to note here is if you look right here on the shock or on this shock, it's all the same thing. There's a little blue knob right here, and that's basically a lever for when you're climbing. So what it does is it stiffens up the rear shock. And a lot of people know from traditional mountain bikes, oh, you should flip that when you're going uphill and it'll stop the bike from bobbing and all that. That's great, but with e-bikes, I don't use that at all. You don't need it because the motor is assisting you, you're spinning faster, and it seems like you would want that to stop the bob, but actually in reality what it's doing is it's not really helping you, because when that is open and not closed, your suspension is more active, it's working more, and your rear tire is getting better grip on the dirt, which in turn is saving your battery life, as opposed to it being stiff and you're going up the trail and it's skipping and you're losing traction and it's just sucking your battery life. So a lot of people go out there on their e-bikes and they flip that knob thinking it's going to help them. There's nothing wrong with that, but you don't need to do that anymore because e-bikes are amazing. So I hope that sort of helps you right there. That's kind of a general outlook onto how to set up your suspension. I encourage you to go out there on the trail, try it, adjust. Let me know if you have any questions. As always, leave your questions in the comments. I always jump in there. Happy to help you guys out, and see you on the next video.